minutes after.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our 18th meeting. We'll call it to order. Pretty short agenda today. As you can see, we're going to, I guess, finalize and approve our River Basin plan. We'll go over any comments we received before we do that. A little item on our membership and sort of talk for a minute about what's next. Someone want to offer a motion to approve this agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Thanks, Dean. Second by Ken. All in favor?
Aye.
How about we'll just say if anyone objects, okay. And likewise, I guess hopefully at least some of you had the opportunity to review the minutes and the summary and would like to make a motion that we approve those.
So approved.
So moved.
Second.
Approved.
Second.
I heard from Karen saying, all right, anyone object to motion to approve those minutes? All right, hearing no objection, we'll consider those approved. Okay, how about newsworthy items? I think Ken was just sort of starting to ask if what's going on. Don, you got anything to share?
Yeah, Grace, if you want to advance forward 2 slides. I think since we last met, Water SCs met once or twice. On August 4th and 5th, they had a retreat in Greenville. I attended that. There was a lot of lively discussion focused on coming to consensus on some recommendations, and the 4 bullets that you see there kind of summarize where they reached consensus. So Water SC group felt that state water planning activities should continue. So they voiced support for ongoing state water planning beyond this first round of river basin planning. They recognize the need for both public and private funding to continue planning, for DES administration of planning, for more data collection, research, technical studies, and grants for implementation of water projects that have been identified in the river basin plans. So they supported pursuing both private and public funding for those activities. Of interest to this basin, they supported engaging in interstate water management strategy conversations with Georgia and with North Carolina. They felt that was needed and important. So I think they kind of took to heart your recommendation and the Upper Savannah's recommendation and others about that. And then they supported development of an education and outreach communications plan on statewide water efficiency and demand side water management strategies. Those weren't the only topics they discussed, but those were the ones that they all reached consensus on. I think they're going to continue their discussion at the next meeting, which, Joe, is what, September 25th, thereabouts?
Yeah, that's correct. September 25th.
Yep. Anything else, Joe, you want to add on Water SC that I didn't touch on?
No, I think you provided a good summary. It was a good discussion during the retreat. And we look forward to continuing that discussion in our September meeting. And then there's a fairly quick turnaround. The following meeting in October, I think, is on the 11th. So we'll have a couple meetings and continue those discussions.
Is the Water SC not a permanent group?
That is one of the other recommendations that kind of came out of that is that they would like to continue as a group.
But it's not, it was never set up to be a permanent like water oversight for South Carolina group.
No, that really wasn't contemplated in the executive order that formed the group.
Okay.
It pretty much focused on them as an advisory group to DES to create the state water plan.
All right, any other questions about Water SC or any other newsworthy items RBC members would like to offer up?
John, the only thing, this is John Carmen, the only thing I would add is that the state has started to hire individuals whose job title includes river basin responsibilities. And the Edisto river basin person has been hired. Beyond that, I can't tell you how many they've actually hired. My understanding is that they intend to combine the upper and lower Savannah into one position. So that's about all I know on that point.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Joe, is that something, or Scott, you'd want to speak to, or?
I would assume that's the Office of Resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear the first part of John's comment. What group is he referring to? Or what?
He just said the state generally hired watershed. I understand that SCORE, Office of Resilience, is hiring watershed coordinators,
Oh yeah.
and they're more focused on, flooding, where we're a bit more focused on, water resource availability and drought resilience.
Hopefully quality.
So
Karen Hardison has been at several of our meetings. She's the Salkehatchie coordinator from SCORE.
right, yep. So John, I think that's probably what you're referring to. I don't think DES and the water planning group and Joe's Bureau of Water group has started hiring folks that are focused on the water planning that we've been doing. To
Okay.
help clarify that. Yeah.
It's clear as mud to me, but that's fine.
Okay.
It's a large bureaucracy.
Okay.
Hey, John, the only other thing was the Bartram's Bass news. Hey.
Oh yeah, John,
we
you want to
go.
mention that?
Hey, that's real news.
John, do you want to explain what that was?
Oh, do you want me to address that? Sure,
Uh-huh.
I'll attempt to. So they have identified and given a scientific name to a species of bass found in the Savannah River, solely there, as far as I know. And it's a colorful black and gold bass that has been known for a while, but this was the first indication that it's been granted species status. And I don't know where that goes in terms of possible protections or fishing limits or any of that, but it was a notable accomplishment on the part of the state to have done the research and the research that justified the declaration of this particular species, new species.
Well,
I've never seen one, by the way.
well, I saw the picture, and I don't know where they come up with their names, but my Cropterus Pico Daddy or Pico Buddy or whatever they came up with was like, how in the world do you come up with that? But they did.
Yeah.
And that's just
Okay.
a South Carolina, that's just a South Carolina effort? Georgia not involved in it, as far as we know?
As far as we
Gene,
know.
I cannot address that. I don't know. Specifically, this fish has been found and lives in the Savannah River above the fall line. So technically not in the lower Savannah, as at least according to the documentation that the state was providing.
Okay.
I think I saw that there was reference to Georgia EPD or DNR and Clemson and maybe some others involved in the research over the years. So I don't know that it was directly or exclusively DNR, South Carolina.
Believe it was Clemson. There's some University of Georgia, and South Carolina, Georgia DNR collaboration involved in that.
Right. Yep. Okay, anything else before we move on? Newsworthy items? Nope. All right. Public and agency comment. Any members of the public or agency members want to make comment? Nope. All right. Let's move on to item 3. So the main thing we want to do today is finalize and approve the river basin plan. Typically, in all the other river basins, after we've released the draft plan, posted it for public comment for 30 days, we have received public comments. This is the first time we received 0 public comments on the draft plan. So there's really nothing to address, which both makes it easy and makes me wonder if anybody read it, but I know some people read it. John Carmen, you mentioned you sent it to Senator Young, and you've been increasing awareness of folks in the Aiken area about it. Senator Young at least read the executive summary, said he had no comment, as did others. But for better or for worse, there was no comments. So we don't really have any changes we need to make from the draft to the final plan to address those comments.
Well, I move we approve the plan as written and submitted.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I second.
Second.
All
Third.
right. Third. Okay. Grace, you want to go ahead and go to the next slide? Remember, in the first step, we did a 1 through 5 vote. In this second step with the final plan, all we do is basically indicate our support for the plan or our disagreement with the plan. Go ahead to the next slide, Grace. I don't know that we need to do this time, but in the past in other RBCs, we've kind of gone through one by one to voice support for the plan. Since there are no changes and Ken just made a motion that was approved, I'm just going to check the box next to everyone that it was supported. Now, we don't have every RBC member on this call, so I'll follow up this meeting with a email to the entire RBC indicating the motion and the approval and giving folks that aren't attending today the opportunity to let me know if they, for some reason, do not approve of the plan. I don't expect that will be the case. But since there were a handful of folks that we never received a vote on the draft plan, I would like to follow up and make sure they're on board with the final plan. So I'll attempt to do that. We will document the vote and any final approvals or disapprovals in the plan itself, and then get it posted. Everyone comfortable with that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay, let's move on. One thing that we ran out of time during our last meeting.
Did we, I
go
don't
ahead.
think we voted on the motion. Did we?
I just heard seconds and thirds, but technically maybe no, we didn't vote. If you want to back up, Grace, and we'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone not approving, say nay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ken. All right. Membership and term limits. Go ahead to the next slide, Grace. We want to get an idea going forward, primarily whether the folks that had selected or randomly picked 2-year term limits intend to continue. That's the ones in red font. Before we do that, I guess it makes sense to explain what the current plan is for moving forward. And that's a little bit up in the air. Most RBCs are kind of on pause. I think I mentioned this before. The broad RBC, which finished more than a year ago, actually has met twice to begin working on implementation. Their last meeting, though, was might have been late last year or early this year. I can't remember, but they have not met for some time. The Saluda RBC has talked about getting together and meeting before the end of the year, but I don't know that they've made any concrete plans to do so. But generally, the RBCs are kind of on hold while the state water plan is prepared and released. And there's a little more clarity around funding and support for continued planning efforts. So with that in mind, unless you all as an RBC decide you want to continue meeting the remainder of this year, the next time you would likely meet would probably be sometime in the first quarter of next year, perhaps. So with that in mind, we had 5 or so folks that had 2-year terms, which technically expire in November this year.
Hey, John.
Yeah, Tom.
Isn't Ken and Carrie 3 years since they're chair and vice chair now?
Yeah, technically you're right. I think we drew before they were selected as chair and vice chair. So Ken and Carrie, you really have 3-year terms, not 2-year terms. At least that's what we've been doing in the other RBCs.
John.
So that would, yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Paradise here. Looks like I'm on board till 2027.
Mm-hmm.
Probably be good if I rolled out 2025. So if you wanted to switch Carrie and me or something so that they had those 3-year terms, that might be good.
Okay. Grace, do you mind going into the editing mode and just putting a note next to Tommy that he'd like to roll off in November 2025? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Courtney, you're November 2025 term limit. Would you intend to continue or would you like to roll off?
I can continue, yeah, until we figure out what's going on.
Okay. Joey's not on the call and Will Williams is not on the call. So for the other folks that are 3 and 4 year term limits, Tommy just mentioned he's a 4-year, but he would like to roll off this year. Are there any others that would like to roll off ahead of their originally dedicated term limit?
Well, again, mine doesn't say that, but I'll continue. I know we talked about it, but
yep. Okay.
We'll put that under Carrie and me. I assume Carrie's going to continue too.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, Carrie?
Yes, I am good to continue. I do want to mention to the group though that I think when we resume, if we all agree to resume, in the first quarter, I would like to open up the opportunity for others to be nominated and serve as chair. I would, for various workload reasons, I feel it's best if I step down. So just be thinking about that when we resume. But I'm committed to staying on the council, but like to provide the opportunity for someone else to step up and be chair.
Okay. All right. I think what I'll do when I send out an email just to get concurrence from those not attending today's meeting on the plan, I'll also mention the term limits and see if anybody is interested in stepping off if they had a 2-year term, or have them confirm that they intend to continue if they have a 3 or 4-year term. So we'll try to get some additional clarity on the makeup of the RBC. And the reason we're doing this is, again, if we continue planning in next year and we have gaps in the water interest categories, we don't have a water interest category represented, we'd like to try to fill that gap. So this helps DES try to reach out and identify new members to fill those gaps. Okay, any questions about term limits?
John, were you going to maybe talk a bit more about future meetings?
Yep, that's our last agenda item.
Okay, all right. I'll wait. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, well, this is really the last agenda item. It's just discussion of next steps in the planning process. As I mentioned, it's really kind of up to y'all if you want to continue on meeting in the near term. Like I said, most RBCs have decided to kind of wait until there's some more clarity around planning. And that would come from DES. And a lot of that discussion centers on continued funding for like the role I'm serving right now as a facilitator, funding for implementation. For example, some of the technical studies that you identified in your implementation plan may require a bit of funding, may require coordination with other agencies. So not a lot of that's been resolved yet, but I expect once the state water plan comes out, the recommendations from Water SC and DES are made known, and the legislatures weighed in, then I think there'll be some more clarity early next year. Again, though, in the meantime, I think if y'all want to continue meeting, you're certainly welcome to do that. You just have to kind of arrange that through DES and figure out how you'd want to do those meetings, where you'd want to do them, and what you would work on.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any update on the groundwater modeling efforts, and is there any target timeline for those to start and conclude?
Yeah, Scott or Brooke or Joe, do you want to speak to that?
We're still periodically meeting with the USGS. They are finalizing some of their calibration work, and I don't really have a solid timeline on where the model would be applied in the lower Savannah Basin right now, unfortunately. But we'll try to keep you informed the best we can on that. So they're making progress, but it's slow, I would say. Okay. Is that fair, Brooke?
That's fair. I was just looking to see when our last communication was. I think we have a meeting with them next week, so we should have more information then. But there was some issues, and they just want to make sure that everything is perfect. So it's just slow and steady. But hopefully in the somewhat near term, it's the best that we can hope for.
Scott or Brooke, would you expect them to focus first on the PD and then move over to Lower Savannah, Salkehatchie, or would they be doing work simultaneously and all coastal basins, or do you
That's
know?
a good question.
Good question.
I think once they get the model calibrated and the regional model set up, I think things will move faster. And I don't know if they picked one, if we decided one to start with, but I got the impression that they thought they could do a lot of it simultaneously. But we'll ask about that at our next meeting.
Okay.
I have another question. Is in the water SC discussions, is there any talk of one of our big recommendations was the governor reaching out to establish some sort of bi-state working committee with respect to Georgia? Is that in their discussions at all, on their radar?
Joe, I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
Sure. I think generally it's being discussed that, we should be cooperating with Georgia and North Carolina on all levels. And we're already doing that to some degree. We've met with Georgia and we've shared some water use data. We meet with North Carolina on matters. So I think generally there'll be a recommendation in the state water plan to continue to do that. And the legislation would have to consider at what level they formally do that at that more legislative or executive branch.
Yeah, I think Ken's question is pretty valid, and Georgia is withdrawing a lot of water, going to withdraw a lot more water, and I'm of the opinion, of course, that when we're doing any significant water withdrawals at either state, there ought to be a formal process that reviews that withdrawal and essentially issues some kind of a recommendation that both states sign on to. I think it's got to be more formal than just discussions. Ken, do you feel kind of that
Yeah,
way?
no, and I think a number of us on this Basin Council would be interested if there's a dual state thing to sit on that as well and be part of that if that opens up or whatever. We talked about that early on, but it just kind of went away. So
I would strongly second all of that and then suggest that this council make a commitment to meeting regularly, be it quarterly or whatever, so that our interests and concerns have an opportunity to be shared with the state and to receive updates from the state periodically.
So John, is it my understanding you guys are not funded to continue with even a virtual quarterly meeting with the state and us?
Mm-hmm. Well, technically, we were under contract to do the contract we have for this covers both Savannah, Upper Savannah and Lower Savannah. There's a little bit of remaining money. We didn't have to do all the RBC meetings. We only did one of 4 potential planned inter-river basin council meetings. So there's a little bit of funding less that we could use to do some additional virtual meetings, if you're interested in doing that. And I'd be happy to help facilitate those.
Yeah, I would suggest we do some either prior to the end of the year or right after the first of the year, whatever makes sense based on what's going on.
I'd second that.
Yeah, me too. And let's see what Water SC comes up with respect to that particular thing. John, based on your, and I haven't been to those meetings, is there anybody on Water SC that's advocating hard for this, or is it something that just kind of came up and is being discussed?
Advocating hard for interstate collaboration.
Some more formalized interstate coordination.
There is, and I'm trying to remember back to the retreat who was the most vocal. It was discussed a good amount of time, but I think Scott Willett, who's now retired, was probably one of the folks that's pushing most for it. But there was consensus among the entire room that it's necessary.
Good.
And I would say, Scott, subject to you and Joe's approval, I'm just throwing some ideas out there. You guys are the funding people, so.
I'll just add on this topic. I mean, I think obviously it's important for us to continue to meet, and that's kind of a shared responsibility at this time, as we clarify contractually who will be involved and what funding is available moving forward. But on the issue of more formal legislative interaction or formal executive interaction between South Carolina and Georgia, I would also suggest that you reach out to your local representatives and make that known individually as well as a group. So, I think you have the power to do that as well.
I will mention too that Georgia continues to do their water planning. They are continuing on with their regional plan work. They are actually starting the process of updating all of their groundwater models for potential application for new studies and answer new questions. They have multiple models that they use. So over the next year and a half, those are going to be updated. So Georgia is moving forward with water planning as they have for the past decade or so. Not as much of an interest to your group, but on the North Carolina side, there's been a lot of discussions around interbasin transfers driven primarily by Charlotte Water's desire to increase their interbasin transfer. And then the legislature kind of put a moratorium on that while they study the issue for the next year or so. But that certainly affects South Carolina basins as well, and what those decisions might be around upstate interbasin transfers. Well, Carrie and Ken, I think maybe I'll leave it with you. If y'all decide you would like to try to meet later this year or early next year, just let me know and we can figure out whether that should be a virtual meeting, what should be on the agenda. During our planning team call a week or two ago, we talked a little bit about, one idea was just starting to focus perhaps on some of the low-hanging fruit in your implementation plan. So that might be something worth discussion, going through the implementation plan and seeing if there's RBC members that are willing to take on certain items and what could reasonably be accomplished without continued funding for now. Some of the softer items, perhaps. It sounds like the groundwater modeling part, which is of significance and importance, probably won't be available for discussion until sometime late next year, perhaps, or middle of the year. Who knows? But I don't know. There's much more you can do around groundwater modeling until we hear more from the USGS and DES.
Well, if it's agreeable with you, Carrie, why don't we set up a call between us and John and Tom the week of December 8th. You can be around, Carrie. We can just do a quick call and see if there's anything worthy to do a virtual call with a group on either late December or early January.
Sure. So just so you're thinking early December, we'll convene to talk about when to meet.
Well, just get an update on where Water SC is and see if there's a reason to bring the group together on a virtual call. I think we can do that and just see where things are. I'm open pretty much all week if you want to pick a date.
Okay.
At that point too, there should be a draft of the state water plan released for public comment. So you would have the benefit of seeing recommendations, state level recommendations, and kind of the direction on and support for further planning and funding for further planning in the state water plan. So that might help inform what you decide to meet about.
All right, let's do it on the 11th. That's a Thursday. We'll just kind of pick that.
Perfect.
It's a Thursday. We'll say with Thursday, do that Thursday morning, about 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Touch base, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Tom, do you mind just sending out a Zoom invite for that for, I guess, the 4 of us?
I'm not sure if I'll be still engaged at that point.
Okay, I can send something out. Okay. All right, any other comments, discussion items, or questions around next steps in the planning process?
I have a quick question just about the state water plan. You said something about it might be out by December. Will we get some kind of information or an email about that? Because I haven't seen anything. It's not necessarily on my radar through some of my work stuff. So I'm just wondering if we are going to get an email about that when the state water plan comes out.
Yeah, and I'm just, I can't say this for certain, but I would expect that when DES releases the draft state water plan for public comment, there will be kind of a mass mailer through multiple channels and distribution lists to let folks know. So I imagine you'll hear about it. I think one of the distribution lists would probably be all the RBCs and RBC members.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John, along similar lines, what's the time frame in terms of like actual publication of our basin plan?
Well, we should be able to turn around within the next week since there are no changes, no public comments to address. I just need to take off draft, add an appendix, update chapter 1, and that's it. So I should probably have it ready for end of next week. It'll be posted.
Okay. How about like members getting actual like publications of it, like hard copies of it, like what we got from Edisto and all that?
Yeah, that probably take a little bit longer. Scott, if I were to send you a print version by the end of next week, how long does that usually take for you to turn it around?
Well, I mean, Joe may have to weigh in. We've been trying to get other basin hard copies printed out, and I don't know what the status of that is. But we would try to do the same thing for the lower Savannah. Joe, do you know of where we're at with that?
No, I can look into that. We'll probably have digital copies available before hard copies will become available. That may take a bit more time, but I would think sometime this fall we could have those available.
You could have the hard copies available or the digital copies available? I'm sorry.
Digital copies would be available and posted on our website for download within a week or two, according to John, it sounds like.
Yes.
Hard copies would take more time. You know, we got
just let me throw out as a matter of practical operation. Having a hard copy is a very useful product to deliver to people. And it gives you an opportunity in the process of delivering it to have a focused conversation on the effort and where it's going or what needs to be done next. So the deliverable is more than just something to go on your bookshelf, at least in my frame of reference.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Yeah, agree with you.
Agreed.
My question would be, once their hard copies are available, where could we get them? I mean, would we have to wait until we had a possible maybe meeting? Because it doesn't sound like we're going to be having regular meetings again for a bit. Would they be distributed or sent to a central location where we could pick them up? how would we go about getting those copies?
We'll work through those details. We likely can transport some down to a central location near where you all have been meeting, or maybe, some in Aiken, some down that way, whatever makes sense, but we can help facilitate that.
Yeah, I would just say like a place like us, public building and drive-through window and all that. And we, like John said, it's a great way to go around to some of our local stakeholders and show them what's going on. But then also you could have some sites, like our building here where, hey, general public, if you want to pick up a copy, pull through
Right.
the PSD drive-through window.
Just thinking like Coral Sound Foundation would be a good place to have some.
We can do it.
Yep.
Can't we, Courtney?
Would you all want just the executive summary or the full plan itself, or do you have an opinion?
I think more executive summaries and some full copies.
Yeah.
John, you were muted, whatever you.
I have a use for both. Anyway. And so I would tab the executive summary within the full hard copy as I'm handing it to somebody.
Right.
Because, 200 pages is 200 pages, but, the executive summary is a far more useful, digestible product.
I would think that, just personal use, I would want an executive summary and a full copy, but, just a couple to have, so that I can say, hey, this is what we've been working on. This is what it is. I've got a full copy. If you want to borrow it to read it, here's this one, and have a couple extra copies that people can look at and flip through and read, but then have, a stack of executive summaries that people can, we can hand out and people can read through and look at and see what it is. So.
Okay. All right.
All right, I have one thing to say. I want to thank John, Tom, Grace, everybody from the team that's been helping us do this and working on this for the last year and a half. We've done a fabulous job. I mean, the work, John, that you and your team have done, and Tom worrying about all the little details. It's been remarkable, and I think very useful. And I think, and just speaking of the plan itself, one of the most important things in that plan is this incredible collection of all the detail and information about these two basins that we never had in one place before. So we have all kinds of information there that will be useful as we go forward. A lot of these facts are not going to change in terms of rainfall records and all the stuff that's in there. It's so important long-term for decision-making and those kinds of things. So thank you very, very much.
I was going to say the same thing, but I also, Scott, that initial email you sent out, and Joe and staff at the state, thank you for facilitating this and bringing us all together. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah, I meant to include Scott, since he and I have been involved in this since, I don't know how long, Scott. Whenever we started at DNR.
Oh, thank you.
And
Yeah,
everyone here too, you guys that have headed up and kind of wrangled us, as Basin members, but also, everybody. I think I know I have learned something from each and every one of you. So, thank you guys, all of you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate hearing that. It's been great working with the RBC. I will mention something too, and I'll give John Carmen as an example. I know he's been out doing a lot of advocating. So, he's been in contact with Senator Young and others trying to get the word out. And I know some of you all have been doing the same. And I'd encourage you to continue to do that because I think that's very important as you try to start implementing some of the actions and strategies that you've identified. Keeping that momentum going is going to be very important. There's one opportunity I'll mention for continuing to get the word out. The South Carolina Environmental Conference is annually every year in March in Myrtle Beach. And I see Pete shaking his head, and some of the other water utility folks go to that. Typically, I've done a presentation just on river basin planning. And I may submit an abstract, just kind of do a summary of all river basin planning with DES approval of that. But if you all want to speak specifically to the lower Savannah, Salkehatchie, or maybe team up with someone from the upper Savannah and do a presentation, I'd encourage that. It's always good to hear from the RBC members themselves. I think that's more powerful than hearing from myself or DES. So just keep that in mind. If you do want to submit an abstract, they're due September 12th, next week. So you'd have to get something in. The Saluda RBC did one last year. So keep that in mind.
John, if I put together like a PowerPoint about the plan, just high level, would it be something I could send to you or to whom, maybe just to kind of get it signed off on a bit, so I'm just not out there on my own making something like that without some sign off on it. And
Sure. Yeah, and I'm certainly willing to help give you any photos or graphics or information that you need for that. I would run that through Ken and Carrie to make sure that they feel comfortable it's representing the entire RBC.
Yeah.
John, earlier in the process, we had a few slides that started to focus on the recommendations. Would those be worth sharing to folks more broadly? I put them to good use as in 2 instances. But I think that's very similar to what Pete is getting at, is something that's been reviewed by the state. It reflects the work of the council, and maybe even shows next steps or TBDs.
Right.
Yeah, John, maybe it'd be easier. Maybe we just have John and company come up with maybe a 15-slide overview of the plan. Just so if you're sitting with somebody, it's easier to open up your tablet and tap through it than it is give them a document too.
Yeah.
And that way it's standardized for everybody on the call that wants to use it.
Yeah, so we do have the presentation from the public meeting, and that's probably 25 or so slides, but I would offer that one up, and I'm happy to send the actual PowerPoint to any RBC member that's interested.
That'd be good.
The slides we want.
Could you please?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep, I'll do that. Right. And you can pick and choose what you want there, depending on who you're talking to. So.
And Pete, that should solve your issues, right? Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other final comments or questions before we wrap it up? Well, hearing nothing. Carrie, do you want to adjourn us?
Sure. Any objections to adjourning? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Again.
Y'all are a great group.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
y'all.
you, Carrie, so
All right.
much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thanks all.
Good. Bye-bye.